We hear AI and think tools, prompts, algorithms, robots, workplace shifts, and the list just goes on. But today, we're talking about something much more human. There's a huge gap in the conversation, in our opinion, right now, because everyone's talking about how AI will transform work, but almost no one's talking about how it can transform service, how it can empower volunteers, nonprofits, and communities to do more good together. And that's the space that we at Goodera want to explore. What does it look like when people and AI co-volunteer? How do we keep belonging at the center with technology while we scale impact? I'm Alissa, this is the Good Talk, and we're with Carolyn Barlerin today, and we're going to dive into the intersection of social impact, volunteering, and AI, and how we can shape the future of the volunteering world. I'll preview a few of our AI tools we're rolling out early next year to make volunteering easier, more inclusive, and a lot less admin heavy. Hi, I'm Alissa May. Over the last 15 years, I've worked across nonprofits, companies, and consulting, helping teams build programs that create real connection and real outcomes. In my role at Goodera as the Vice President of Impact, we're building the future of corporate volunteering, accessible, engaging, and impactful for every employee on the planet. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Carolyn Barlerin. Carolyn has spent her career at the intersection of social impact, corporate responsibility, and community building. She's been advising leaders and organizations on how to align purpose with business and scale that works. She's someone who sees both the system side of things and the humans operating inside of the system and helps to move both of those together. She's a visionary and someone I've looked up to for a very long time. And I'm so thankful she's joining us here. Carolyn, welcome to the Good Talk.
Melissa, thanks. I'm really happy to be with you and excited to have a good talk with you.
Yeah. So we usually kick things off with something that we call goody sparks. So this is to get your synapses firing, get things moving. The intention is that I'll toss out a question, you answer with, whatever comes to mind quickly. No overthinking, just instincts, Carolyn instincts. How does that sound?
Okay, fun. That sounds great.
Let's do it. Okay, so what is one ritual or tradition that matters to you?
Our family at the dinner table does a rosebud thorn pretty much every night just to check in on how the day was and if they're big or small, roses, buds, or thorns. And sometimes we also do a soil of something we've learned. But it's just a nice thing to ground us in hearing how everyone's days have been since we're always spinning around independent of each other, that we come back together and get to hear from each other.
Oh, rosebud, thorn, and soil.
Yeah, my
Learning.
daughter created soil, which is a cool one.
Oh, I want to add that in. I love it. Okay, next question. What is your go-to? Well, you're at the dinner table, so what is your go-to comfort food?
Oh, I really like saag paneer and rice and naan, onion kulcha. That's a pretty good one for me. Like that's really good. And then family collective is burritos.
Oh, I mean, California gal,
Yeah.
you gotta have a burrito in there somewhere. Spicy saag paneer? Are you a spicy gal?
I'm a medium spice. Like I'm kind of like a sweating, like yeah, like oh, it's hot. Like I have a big respect for the heat. I like the heat. I want to ask you the same. What's yours?
My comfort food? Oh, we're turning this back. Chocolate chip cookies every
Oh,
day, every time.
okay.
Like I just
Okay.
couldn't. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a warm
It's
chocolate cookie would be on our short list for sure, 1,000%. We always have cookie dough made and in the freezer just in case we need to like make a cookie fast.
okay. I'm coming to your house next time. Little sea salt on top too. Just like, yes, delicious.
Good
Okay.
answer.
What is the most adventurous thing that you've ever done?
Well, some people may not think it's adventuresome, but my husband, daughter, and I rented a 23-foot RV and went and did the Mighty Five in Utah, and RV camped and did the Narrows and like walked with the wooden dowels through the river, and we thought it was pretty exotic. For others, that may be like a ho hum thing, but for us, we felt like that was pretty adventuresome. Going getting lost in nature for a little while. It was super fun.
Oh my gosh, and disconnection and probably so much beauty in
Yeah,
those five
yeah,
places. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's adventurous for sure. So, what is one word for, now we're going to lead into the podcast, what we're going to talk about, one word for how you're feeling about AI and social impact today. One word, can't have a sentence.
I think my word is curious.
I like it. Getting curious. I think that's what we got to do right now. Thank you for doing a little rapid fire. Goody Sparks. Appreciate it.
I like the goodie sparks. That was fun. No, that was a great way of kicking us off in a very human way. So human-centered way. So here's to that.
Learn a little bit about you too. And I'll be at your house for cookies later.
You bring the
Okay.
seashell.
Yeah, okay. I can do that. I can handle that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're thinking about at Goodera in terms of AI, the intersection of AI and service. And then what we're going to talk about is going to ladder up to these and get into some of the work that you've been doing, some of the things that you've been thinking about and working with companies on. So that's the direction we're going to take it. So I think what I want to share is at Goodera, we're thinking about 3 hypotheses about AI and volunteering. And really the way that the container that we're keeping it all in is, the goal is simple for us. We want to reduce the admin tax on volunteering. So how do we reduce that by at least 50%, if not more? And how do we measure that? But also, how do we do that and raise inclusion and deepen community connection? So our 3 hypotheses are these. We think that co-volunteering, and when we say that, we think service supported by AI, co-volunteering with AI, will at a minimum increase capacity by 10%, but not 10%, 10 times without displacing community relationships. We also believe that literacy will beat tooling every time. So the biggest gap that we see right now is in skills and literacy around AI, not software or access to it at this point. So we think we're in a really unique position with the relationships we have across the industry to support this literacy gap at scale. And then the third hypothesis is trust is the product. Governance is a feature, not a policy. So trust has to be built into how the system works. And I don't think that we're quite there yet, especially as we look at it through the lens of volunteering. So what we want to discuss with you today, Carolyn, is some of these hypotheses. And what we want to start with is this larger idea, people and AI working side by side in the service space. So when you picture co-volunteering, so AI plus humans, what does that actually look like?
Well, first of all, I was just so excited about this conversation. I feel like kudos to Goodera for just being on the edge of asking these questions on like AI and volunteering at large. I just think like, yes, let's explore this together. And anyone who thinks that they know, I challenge, because I think it's changing. I think Jared Chung said at your summit last year, like it's changing every few months. So it's a super exciting time to have this conversation. I think that there's often a power differential between the volunteers and the nonprofit. And I'm a fan on trying to equalize the playing field between those two worlds. And so I love this concept of co-volunteering. And I think, yes, we can get into the AI literacy gap on both sides, but I do think volunteer readiness is an area that I think was really interesting, where the well-intended person who is a corporate volunteer may go in with some assumptions of thinking that they understand something that they may not understand. So like Socrates, I know what I do not know. Like to start with using AI to get yourself ready to fall in love and learn about the organization you're going to be with and the issue areas you're going to be with. And no one's supposed to come in as a volunteer expert in anything. We start as like a tourist, like on the journey. But I do think that this AI readiness, AI could be a companion for helping volunteers to be ready to show up with their head and their heart open to learning as much as they're giving and receiving as much as they're getting. Like, so I think that that to me is an area where AI could really like demystify by doing, but before they do, prep, uh, along with the learning that you do through the service.
I appreciate that you bring in the power differential there and how AI can be an equalizer around that. I think that's huge for us to be thinking about. But in addition to that, just, I mean, just kind of like an executive briefing going into any service experience, right? Like just prompting AI to say, like, tell me more about this issue area. Tell me more about how this nonprofit's contributing to this issue area. Tell me how I can maybe make a contribution there. So I think that's just a really amazing and interesting way to think about this. And I think AI can take away some of that friction if you are open to some of those pieces that you're talking about learning in the space. And I think it gives us a little bit more time to do the work with a nonprofit. Like when you show up, you already have that body of knowledge and you've done your homework. And that kind of removes that piece. You can just dive into the work of building relationships and doing whatever the nonprofit is looking for you to do. I think that's huge. I'm
Yeah,
wondering, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, please.
No, I have a fundamental belief that grandma taught me, which is everyone is a student and everyone is a teacher. And if you show up in the world with everyone being a student, everyone being a teacher, you've got something to teach and you've got something to learn. And so I feel like, gosh, there's a lot of problems in the world right now. The problems are getting bigger, but AI technology is also getting bigger. And so you use the word trust. And I think trust is a product, but I also think trust is a currency. So just show up and have that curiosity to be willing to learn, but not having the hubris, but more humility to say, here's what I think I know, but what do you know? And start with a question rather than the offer. I think might balance. And I feel like AI can be a tool for us to have some empathy going in addition to accelerating scale and all the other things we can get into.
I love what your grandma said, teach and learn. And your one word was curious. So that that tracks that you're trying to be curious, you're trying to learn and have that positioning. And it makes me wonder if you had a small, willing group of people tomorrow ready to experiment around this, what kind of co-volunteering with AI pilot would you start? Like, what would be something you would give a try?
Okay, I love this question. This is so exciting. So yes, let's do this together. I think first of all, just administratively, there's a lot of things that maybe AI could reduce the friction in the system. So, wow, when we were starting Taproot Foundation, the matching of employees' skills and passions with the needs for nonprofits, that took like really intentional design by a person that I do think AI companions can maybe help us accelerate that administrative task. In addition to that, the fundraising is what nonprofits often need so much of. That I'm curious. I've seen a lot of workshops on helping nonprofits accelerate their ability to write more customized fundraisings, grant proposals, grant reports. That maybe that's another area where volunteers could. AI could do the first draft and then volunteers could be reviewing it together with a nonprofit for sure. In addition, just the co-learning. I think co-learning is an area that is going to be so important. there's going to be times where the nonprofit knows more AI than the volunteer, and there's times that the volunteer will know more AI than the nonprofit. So it's just figuring out the AI maturity profile of both the volunteer and the nonprofit. But I do think that this learning together in terms of, data sets, chat bots, like just how you can be learning together to get more familiar and more comfortable in just using AI every day, in addition to like different AI products out there, and starting to try that. And then I do think scaling is so sexy. I love scaling, and there's really interesting case studies we can get into around how AI can help perhaps reach more people to solve more problems at a time that we have a lot of problems and we have a lot of technology that could hopefully help, and make sure that still at the human level it's important. And lastly, just the empathy building for making sure that the humans are learning more by using AI to get us upskilled on knowing how to do it. So those are just some things that I think could be areas we could get started with. But the most importantly, we start. You learn by doing, and so let's just start by piloting and trying with some willing people to see what we could do together.
I think those are all amazing ideas. I love how you bucketed it into those different categories. My couple of my favorites that I would love to call out. Scaling is so sexy. I love that because it's Goodera. That's, what we live and breathe every day. We're trying to scale volunteering to every employee on the planet. And I do want to talk a little bit more about that admin piece, the example you said about like AI drafting a grant and then having volunteers take time to review the grant. I think there's that partnership, that co-volunteering partnership that we're thinking about and that you gave us some examples around, like how do we keep a human in the loop, right? So, making sure that there's that extra layer as we're going into service and thinking about service and AI. So, it can't just be about spitting out a grant. There's consent, there's tone, there's empathy, there's relationships, there's trust, like you said, all these things that show up not necessarily in an LLM. So if you are building a human in the loop checklist, Carolyn, for impact teams, what would be on it? What are the questions we should be asking before we invite AI in to make sure that humanness and the human context stays intact?
Yeah, I love that. And I think shout out to Fast Forward for creating a nonprofit AI policy framework. There's a lot of them out there, but I think making sure that there's a ethical, responsible, inclusive use policy for how nonprofits are using it, and make sure that the volunteers are on board. A lot of the corporations that these volunteers are going to be coming from probably have their own, but figuring out, okay, what could go wrong? How do we want to think about it? How do we not perpetuate bias? How do we make sure humans are at the center? I think those are all really good questions that a good policy would have in place. And then obviously, I think starting small with, the AI readiness profile of the people around the table. I think there's some who are like, oh my God, this is scary, I don't want to use it, to some who are like, let's go. So saying like, hey, how on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you using AI? How often do you use it? Just to understand people's readiness and attitudes towards it, to me, could be really good. So go slow to go fast. Ask these questions from the beginning on the collective team of both the nonprofit and volunteer side. I think that that's really, really important. And then I do think AI can be an inclusion tool. So how can AI be an inclusion tool? I mean, translation alone, like the idea of like getting things translated into local languages can lower barriers for sure and make things more accessible. So even asking like, how could we make things more accessible, and using AI to help us make sure that we're putting accessibility in the center, inclusion in the center, equity at the center, is, to me, a really good fundamental hygiene place to start for our AI journey.
I mean, the part about the kind of AI comfort survey is really interesting to me. Like, how are you feeling about AI in this moment? Because you could, in the literacy context, you could show improvement over time, right? If we're looking to measure that. And, in a in a way that's non-intrusive, but just asking that question, like, what are your, what's your comfort with, what we're diving into today? But I also really like what you're talking about in terms of inclusion. So I think there's a question or some sort of criticism around AI when we talk about inclusion, that the language models aren't necessarily trained to be inclusive. Like, who gets to participate in the training? What groups are feeding that information in? I want to talk a little bit more and dive more deeply into that accessibility piece. Especially for the nonprofit community that may not have the same access to the tools or the training. Is there a model that you have seen that maybe an organization or one of the fast forward organizations that are doing this really well to make you think, yeah, like, this is really possible? So human-centered AI, like, here it is in the nonprofit contexts.
Sure. I think, from the platypus view, we work with pre-IPO to Fortune 50 majority tech. We work with AI startups. We work with data centers. We work with a lot of different companies. And there's more headlines about the bad than the good. And that's why I'm such a fan of the fast forward, tech forward nonprofits and what they're doing. And so, I think that the work of quill.org that is doing the one-on-one mentoring and tutoring around English and language, but they're doing it at scale thanks to AI. They are, to me, an amazing example. I think they touch like 3 million students a year, and now have like reached over 9 million students, majority at Title I schools across the United States, on this one-on-one tutoring. And so to me, a bright spot of a story of a nonprofit that's really harnessed the power of AI to scale and make positive impact is one that I'd be really interested in where they might benefit or use volunteers, where volunteers could learn from what they're doing and take it back to their companies. To me, that's interesting. Another example is Tarjimly, which is really using machine-generated translation to help volunteers, especially in crisis. And they do a lot of work with refugees around the world. That, to me, is another bright spot example of where AI is helping solve a problem and accelerating good. Again, both, in the fast forward profile or portfolio, but there's amazing examples. I know Career Village, Jared spoke at your summit last year. Career Village is doing some really compelling work as well. So I think educating us on what's possible with nonprofits harnessing the power of AI for good are good bright spot places for volunteers to figure out how to plug in and learn and get started and add value.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing is, like, start with the human need and then think about how to scale it and let technology follow, which is a big focus for Goodera and our AI charter that we have released for what we're going to be building in the next year. So we have everything from a search to an agent when you are on site, an assistant that's going to help you to navigate things rather than the emails that are flying back and forth. We have someone that can, we have an agent that will be able to support you. And it can be used confidently by anyone. So, like, it's something that is human first, and then we're going to overlay the technology on it. And I think volunteering can be the world's most human classroom, really, for learning AI. Like, you're talking about all of these opportunities for volunteers to be learning from the nonprofits, but nonprofits to be learning from the volunteers and from the technology that we're putting in place to support them. I think it's just a really low stakes place for people and purpose to be supported. I think it's really cool. So I want to ask you, let's say you're on a team at a company, you've got 1 quarter to test some kind of AI literacy pilot. We're going to pilot again. What would that MVP look like? How would you set that up?
Oh, I'm now wanting to set this up. So thank you for this opportunity. I think it would be interesting to start with people who are not scared of AI or really sophisticated with AI, but medium people, like medium level, comfort level, right?
On that survey, comfort survey, they're at medium. Carolyn's spice medium, comfort level medium.
No, exactly. Again, understanding how the nonprofit's currently using AI, and if there was a step function, asking the question if there was a step function of opportunity, what could it be? And do some, I think discovery is first, like the discovery is just learning the state of play of how people are using it. To me, that's really important. And then do a little bit of dreaming about what is possible that we could be doing with metrics for a year, and then design for the reality of what we could do in a quarter, what that could be, and then you deploy it to see what we can do, with some recognition that we're going to learn together, we're going to grow together, we're going to, succeed and fail together, but have the quarter be really a learning opportunity for everybody involved. One other area I'm really animated by is the idea of curriculum development. AI can help design curriculum. If you think about like crisis text line, training people all over, around suicide prevention and reducing risk, there's got to be a lot of training that's done. And I wonder if AI could help get people up to speed on training faster. If there's ways to help accelerate the learning for everybody to become certified faster, so we could get more people into like a crisis text line for volunteers to help be on the front lines doing those phone calls. And then during those phone calls, wow, it'd be helpful to have an AI companion to help with scripts when things get hard or tricky or emotional, to just have some suggested language that you could reference or you could look at, but you're still the human with a heartbeat. So you're not asking AI to be a human, you're having it augment and help the human stay human and be human in the loop, for a project like that. So that's just kind of a sketch of where I might want to start is, the readiness for everybody being a medium for sure, but then, discover, dream, design, and then deploy, and see where you could go in a quarter, and then share the learnings out, and then do it again for the next quarter.
The discovery first, I think, is so important. I think people, they're often, it's a daunting like hump to get over almost. So if you can kind of get over that discovery hump and, like you said, talk about what's possible, fit for the timeline. So my timeline for you was that quarter. Meet people where they're at, make it practical, like you said, and kind of thinking about whatever nonprofit you're serving, how is that going to be practical for them, and meet the people where that they're serving and where they are at. And augmenting. I mean, that's a really like that verb is huge, I think, in the service context. Like we are not here to replace the humans. We're here to support the humans. And in the case of crisis text line, those are highly stressful situations. Like it's nice to have something or someone that can kind of support you in those moments when you feel maybe flabbergasted or taken off, you're just taken off guard about something someone has said. I think it's just a nice centering moment potentially. So I really love that example. So I want to dive a little bit into leadership in this space and how do we build these leaders to have these skills. So I think I'm interested to hear from you. What are the skills that you think really rise to the top for social impact leaders in this AI world? I think we've talked about some of them, but like, what are those skills that you think, gosh, we should all be thinking about these as we continue to move in this AI world?
My question deserves some thinking. I like the question. I think being tech forward, of just not being afraid of tech, to try, like we're all a work in progress, so just try, which is like not being fearful, but being innovative, or risk versus trying. I think the trying is really interesting. Being curious, again, focused on solving a problem versus falling in love with your solution or falling in love with the tech. And at the core, an empathetic human is to me what will win. I feel like that the interstitial layer we need between uh, tech and volunteering, between AI and volunteering, is really the human layer. And so, how do we keep that in the center? And so, lead with the heart plus the head and then the path. But I think that having empathetic people who are tech forward, curious, risk open could make for a really good group to pilot things uh, and try and see where we can go and learn together.
Those are all beautiful. Let's just add those to all the talent development, friends. Like those are all the things that we should be looking at. I like the part you said about like risk open, but I also think risk spotting in this space is really important too. So I think if you are risk open, you are also making yourself a little bit more open to spotting those risks and understanding how to approach them. Um, but the empathy part, I mean, is huge with this, with service especially. Like that's how we are going to be able to connect and, like you've said, augment some of this work with AI. So we're gonna, yeah,
If we had to do it with like I would say somebody who's self-aware, so understand where they are on this, who's somebody who's a critical thinker, somebody who's curious, somebody who's collaborative, and somebody who's creative in their problem solving. So those might be the five buckets.
how are all of those taught?
I think learn from your elders, learn from your youth. I don't know how those are taught, but I don't know if it's in front of a screen.
I
Um,
agree.
I don't know. I feel like, and I don't know if that's always taught in the classroom. Um, I like that question. I think you learn by failure more than success. So you have to create an environment where failure is okay and safe. And that can be a very privileged place to get to be, but designing the environment where you can fail. I think the sports field, the debate team, like different co-curriculars that people can learn those qualities is important. The tone from the top of the parents and teachers and the community around people, and not having such high cortisol that people are scared is another dynamic, I think, from the outside. I don't know. It's a nice question.
It is. And I think you've called out so many beautiful examples, but I also think to be a leader in this space, if you're on the sports field or you're the debate team head or, the adult in the room, let's say, like to connect it back to those things that you're talking about, right? Like to say, like, this is where you are learning how to do X, Y, and Z. Just making it that much more clear that that's what's happening in that context and how important it is. I mean, yeah, I think those examples are really great. I'm curious, so we're talking a lot about, creating human connection with technology. But I think the human connection piece is getting crowded out in some spaces and places. How are you keeping that human connection front and center when you're helping your clients and the work that you're doing at Platypus, when you're helping your organizations that you're working with to evolve?
Yeah, I think it starts by really truly recognizing that do-gooders embedded in tech and for-profit social impact jobs are lonely, hard jobs. These are lonely, hard jobs. And so honoring the fact of being a fellow traveler, like Platypus, we really want to be in companionship and be a fellow traveler with the social impact leaders and professionals, executives we get to work with, to say it's okay. Let's create a safe place where you can say this is hard, this is the thing I don't know, this thing I'm scared about, to then dust off, get up, and go. Tackle the big challenges at the big places where there's lots of headwinds and tailwinds. So I think patience, persistence, a little bit of joy, knowing you're not alone. Those are the things that we do, and really taking a servant leadership approach as well. So just we are here to try to remove the barriers and celebrate the successes and just keep going. Like an object in motion stays in motion. So just learn by doing and try to keep doing better every day for the next 365 days. And so being a learning environment is also really good of just saying like, okay, what could we have done better? What can we do better? And we model that with our, our platypus team internally, and we model that with our clients. Um, One thing we do, Alissa, is we have this thing called state of play. And the state of play is how we start every meeting. And it is just a few minutes to say, like, check in on how somebody is doing. And fellow team member, a client, but it's saying, how are you doing? And the person could say, like, oh my God, our stock price XYZ, our CFO XYZ, or I just locked my keys in my car, or my kid is sick today. So whatever the story is from personal to professional, it's a place to clear out what meeting you just came out of and the meeting you're going into. The state of play to me is really helpful to staying connected and human when we're all two-dimensional on screens most of the day, to get to know each other and appreciate, oh, wow, there is a wedding and there is a funeral and there is a baby and there is a sick parent, or like all those things. That state of play helps remind us of what's important before we just go straight transactional into the work. We start with relational.
And it demonstrates care, like you care about the people that you're working with. And that's so huge. And I think so many professionals, I'm sure, can identify with this. Your context shifting constantly, right? Like you're moving from one thing to another so quickly. And just to have that moment to be able to check in, like you said, the state of play, I love that practice. But what I'm hearing from you that, some of the leadership traits that we're talking about, I think curiosity obviously is one that comes through really loud and clear for me with you. I think there's a lot of courage though behind some of the curiosity. Like you have to be a little bit courageous to put yourself forward and say, especially with an AI maturity or like comfort survey, to be able to say like, I'm not that comfortable with it right now, but I'm willing to learn. And having that self-awareness, I think, is really important. So I hear curiosity, I hear courage behind that, and I also hear care for the people that you're working with. And I think that's showing up, and that's how we're going to humanize this work with technology. So I think that feels like a perfect place for us to kind of wrap up. What do you feel like is a final thought or message that, if you have one, that you'd like to share with the folks that are listening?
This is a team sport, so we can't go at it alone. So let's figure out how to lock arms. Oftentimes with odd bedfellows, with strange different partners we're going to need to collaborate with to help solve and to tackle the problems that we need to tackle. And tech isn't going anywhere, so let's learn how to harness the power of tech for good while keeping humans at the center. And I celebrate this opportunity to have this conversation with you and be a fellow traveler with you along the journey.
Thank you for that. Beautiful way to put it. It's not replacing our humanity. We just need to use it a little bit more intentionally and thoughtfully. Well, thank you, Carolyn, for your time, and we appreciate you being on the Good Talk.
It was great. It was super fun, and I'm looking forward to the Goodera upcoming AI Volunteering Summit. There's also the Hour of AI, which is now part of the AI Hour of Code in early December. So lots of things to look forward to and to tackle. And I'm eager to keep conversations open with anybody who wants to explore this further and find bright spots together and keep learning together. So thank you for the opportunity.
Agreed. We're here for that. Well, thanks, Carolyn.
Be well. Onwards and upwards. Bye.
Carolyn, you're helping us shape the AI and Volunteering Summit on December 9th, a space where social impact leaders, technologists, and nonprofits can learn, experiment, get curious, and build together. And I'm so excited that Platypus Advisors is one of our partners helping design that future, blending strategy, creativity, and heart into how AI can play a role in volunteering. At the summit, we'll be opening that conversation to the entire community. It's virtual, so anyone can attend. We'll also be bringing people together that are local to the Bay Area for our inaugural Supper Club. So this is a conversation to talk more in depth about what we discussed at the virtual summit. I know personally, after attending a virtual thing, I yearn for an in-person connection to follow. And that's exactly what we're doing over good food and drinks in the Bay Area. So I hope you'll be able to join us. The registration link for the summit is in the show notes. as well as the in-person supper club. That was such a good talk. Thank you for being a part of the good talk and part of the journey to build that future with us. And to everyone listening, we'll see you next time, where we'll keep learning, experimenting, and doing good together.